The 6-year-old boy sprinted down the aisle of the sunlit church, his tiny tuxedo jacket flapping behind him like a cape. "Daddy Bryson, stop. Right now you cannot marry her, because you love Uncle Ashton more than anyone else," he shouted loudly. The entire wedding hall fell into a dead silence, as every head turned toward the altar in complete shock. Sarah the bride stood frozen in her elegant white gown, her face draining of all color in an instant. Bryson felt his heart slam against his ribs as he stared down at his son Ethan, who had just shattered everything. The minister clutched his Bible tightly, his mouth opening and closing without any sound coming out. Whispers erupted across the pews like a wave crashing over the crowded church filled with family and friends. Ashton stood as best man just a few feet away, his handsome face tight with sudden worry and love. Bryson dropped to one knee, pulling Ethan close, trying desperately to hush the boy before more damage spread. This cannot be happening, not here, not on the day he had planned to bury his truth forever. He had agreed to marry Sarah to keep the peace in their conservative Colorado town where secrets could destroy lives. His mother Margaret sat in the front row, her expression calm, but her eyes held a depth no one else saw. She had known about Bryson and Ashton for years, watching quietly as her son navigated his hidden world. Yet she never spoke a word, never pushed, never judged, because he had begged her to stay silent. Now the boy's innocent outburst threatened to unravel the careful lie Bryson had built around his life. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling, as she asked what on earth the child meant by those words. Bryson swallowed hard, forcing a weak smile, while his mind raced for any explanation that might save the moment. He glanced at Ashton, their eyes meeting for a split second, filled with years of shared memories and fear. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some already pulling out phones ready to spread the gossip. Bryson lifted Ethan into his arms, whispering that it was just a silly mix-up from a bedtime story. But the boy shook his head, stubbornly insisting that Daddy and Uncle Ashton kissed goodnight every single night. More gasps rippled through the church as relatives exchanged horrified looks and pointed fingers began to rise. Margaret remained seated for now, her hands folded neatly in her lap, but her mind was already preparing. She remembered the night 10 years ago when she first discovered the truth about her son's heart. Bryson had come home late from college, his face glowing with a happiness she had never seen before. She found a crumpled note in his jacket pocket signed by Ashton, describing a stolen kiss under campus lights. Instead of confronting him, she tucked the note away and waited for him to trust her with his story. That silence had become her quiet promise, a mother's way of shielding her child from a judgmental world. Now, as chaos built around the altar, she felt the moment approaching when that promise would demand action. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, demanding answers, while the minister suggested they take a short break. Bryson set Ethan down gently, his hands shaking as he tried to steady himself against the wooden pew. Ashton moved closer, offering a supportive hand on Bryson's shoulder, a gesture that only fueled more whispers. The air grew thick with tension as family members began to stand and murmur about what they had just heard. Bryson felt trapped between the life he had pretended to want and the love he had hidden for so long. He looked toward his mother, hoping for some silent guidance, but she simply met his gaze with steady calm. Outside the church windows, the Colorado sun continued to shine, brightly mocking the storm unfolding inside. Ethan tugged at Bryson's sleeve, asking why everyone looked so mad when love was supposed to be happy. The question pierced Bryson's chest, reminding him how pure and uncomplicated his son's view of the world remained. Sarah turned away, her shoulders shaking as friends rushed to comfort her in the growing confusion. Bryson knew the buildup of years of deception was finally catching up faster than he could control it. Yet deep down, a small part of him felt relief that the secret no longer had to stay buried alone. Margaret watched it all unfold, her heart aching for her son, but ready to step forward when the time came. The drama continued to escalate as more relatives pressed closer, demanding explanations from the shaken groom. Bryson wiped sweat from his brow, realizing the wedding he never truly wanted might end before it began. As the minutes stretched, the church filled with louder voices and pointed accusations that cut through the air. Sarah confronted Bryson directly, her eyes flashing with hurt and betrayal over the words Ethan had spoken. She asked if the boy was telling the truth about Ashton and if their entire engagement had been a lie. Bryson hesitated, his throat tight, unable to deny it fully while standing in front of everyone he knew. Ashton stepped forward, his voice steady, as he suggested they speak privately to avoid hurting anyone more. But the family would not allow it, insisting that secrets had no place in a sacred wedding ceremony. Bryson felt the pressure mounting like a weight on his chest, threatening to crush the life he had built. He remembered the first time he met Ashton during their freshman year at the University of Colorado. They bonded over late-night study sessions and quiet talks about dreams that no one else understood. Their love grew slowly through shared laughter and gentle touches that felt safer away from prying eyes. Margaret had suspected something, even then, noticing how Bryson's texts lit up his face in a new way. She chose silence again, giving him space to figure out his identity without her interference or judgment. Now that same silence felt like both a gift and a burden as the climax of the revelation approached. Guests began to divide into sides, some defending Bryson, while others condemned the deception involving Sarah. Ethan clung to his father's leg, sensing the anger, but not fully understanding the storm his words had caused. Bryson knelt again, hugging his son, tightly whispering that everything would be okay, even if he doubted it himself. Sarah wiped her eyes one last time before declaring that she deserved honesty after months of planning this day. The minister cleared his throat, attempting to restore order, but the damage had already spread too far. Ashton stood tall beside Bryson, their shoulders brushing in a subtle show of support that spoke volumes. Relatives from the bride's side began to gather their things, muttering about leaving the sham ceremony behind. Bryson felt torn between protecting his son and facing the consequences of years spent hiding his true self. The tension climbed higher as more voices joined the fray, turning the joyful wedding into a scene of raw pain. Margaret finally rose from her seat, her movements deliberate and calm amid the growing chaos around her. She had stayed silent for a decade, watching her son struggle with fear of rejection and loss. But now the time had come to break that silence and stand as the shield she had always been. Bryson caught her eye and saw something unbreakable in her gaze, a mother's love that refused to bend. Sarah turned toward Margaret, asking if she had known about any of this hidden truth all along. The question hung in the air, heavy with expectation, as the entire hall waited for an answer. Margaret took a deep breath, her voice steady, when she finally spoke the words that would change everything. She revealed that she had known about Bryson and Ashton's love since the very beginning of their relationship. The admission sent another wave of shock through the crowd, but Margaret did not stop there. She explained how she had chosen silence to honor her son's need for time and safety in a harsh world. Bryson stood frozen, listening as his mother defended the life he had kept hidden from everyone else. Ashton placed a hand on Bryson's arm, drawing strength from the unexpected support unfolding before them. The climax of the exposure reached its peak as family members demanded to know why the truth stayed buried. Margaret faced them all, her posture strong and her words clear as she protected her son without hesitation. She described the quiet nights she had spent worrying, yet trusting that love would guide them through. The revelation shifted the energy in the church from accusation toward a reluctant moment of understanding. Bryson felt tears well in his eyes as the weight of years lifted slightly from his shoulders. Ethan smiled up at his grandmother, sensing that something important and good was happening around him. The drama had built to this breaking point where secrets collided with the fierce power of maternal love. Sarah stood quietly processing the information, her anger softening into a mix of sadness and acceptance. Margaret continued, speaking, her voice carrying the wisdom of a parent who had waited for the right moment. She emphasized that true family meant embracing each other even when the path looked different from expected. The church fell quieter now as her words sank in, challenging the judgments that had filled the space earlier. Bryson reached for Ashton's hand openly for the first time in public, feeling the twist of fate unfold. What had begun as a devastating exposure was transforming through his mother's courage and quiet strength. The buildup of tension finally crested, leaving room for the unexpected turn that no one had anticipated. Margaret stood taller than ever, her eyes sweeping across the stunned faces of relatives and friends gathered there. She recounted the exact day she discovered the letters and the quiet joy in her son's hidden smile. Bryson had been 17 when he first confided parts of his heart, and she had listened without question. Instead of forcing him out, she created a safe space where he could be himself whenever he chose. That choice to remain silent had cost her sleepless nights, but it had preserved his sense of control. Now she declared that protecting her son meant standing up when the world tried to tear him down. Ashton listened with gratitude shining in his eyes as the woman he loved like family defended their bond. The twist unfolded fully as Margaret revealed the adoption of Ethan had been a shared decision between the two men. She had helped them navigate the paperwork quietly, ensuring the boy grew up surrounded by unconditional love. Guests who had been ready to condemn began to lower their voices, some even nodding in reluctant respect. Sarah approached Bryson slowly, her expression softening as she admitted she had sensed something was missing. She wished him well and asked only that the truth guide his future from this moment forward. Bryson hugged her gently, thanking her for the kindness that he knew he did not fully deserve. The climax of betrayal fears dissolved as Margaret's words reframed the entire narrative of the day. Ethan clapped his small hands together, happy to see the adults around him finally calming down. Margaret turned to her son and Ashton, inviting them to step forward together without shame or fear. She reminded everyone that love in any form deserved celebration, not condemnation, in their close-knit community. Bryson felt a surge of emotion as he finally allowed himself to stand beside Ashton in full view. The romantic connection between them, which had always been whispered about, now stood openly in the light. Family members exchanged glances, some still processing, while others began to offer tentative smiles of support. Margaret's long silence had been her greatest act of love, and now it bloomed into powerful protection. She shared stories of watching them build a life together through challenges that tested their commitment daily. The healing began to take root as the church atmosphere shifted from shock toward a cautious warmth. Bryson wiped away tears, realizing how deeply his mother's quiet strength had carried him all these years. Ashton squeezed his hand tightly, their fingers intertwined in a gesture that felt both new and inevitable. The unexpected twist had turned a moment of public pain into one of profound family reconnection. Margaret invited everyone to stay and reflect rather than leave in anger or disappointment. She emphasized that secrets sometimes served as bridges until the time came to cross them openly. The drama that had threatened to destroy the day now paved the way for honest conversations ahead. Ethan ran to his two dads, wrapping his arms around their legs in pure, innocent celebration. The scene captured the essence of resilience as love found its voice through a mother's brave stand. Guests slowly returned to their seats, some wiping their own eyes, moved by the raw honesty displayed. Bryson looked at his mother with gratitude that words could never fully express in that charged moment. Ashton nodded toward Margaret, silently thanking her for the shield she had become when it mattered most. The climax had passed, leaving behind a clearer path toward acceptance and the possibility of true happiness. Margaret smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the peace that came from finally speaking her truth aloud. The wedding that was never meant to be had transformed into a catalyst for healing long-hidden wounds. Family bonds, stretched and tested, now showed signs of mending under the gentle guidance of her words. Bryson felt lighter than he had in years as the weight of pretense finally lifted from his heart. The twist had revealed that silence was not weakness, but a profound form of enduring love and protection. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the wooden floors of the church. Bryson and Ashton stood side by side, their shoulders relaxed for the first time in the public eye. Margaret watched them with quiet pride as the family began to approach with questions instead of accusations. She explained that her silence had never been approval of hiding, but respect for her son's own timing. Ethan tugged at their hands, asking if they could all go home together and read a story like always. The simple request brought laughter that eased the remaining tension and warmed the hearts of those present. Sarah lingered briefly, offering a genuine hug before slipping away with grace and quiet dignity intact. Bryson realized the ending of one chapter opened the door to a future built on honesty and courage. Ashton leaned in, whispering words of love that had waited years to be spoken without fear or restraint. The pain of the exposure faded as healing conversations replaced the earlier chaos and hurtful whispers. Margaret suggested they gather at her house later to talk more openly as a family united by truth. She reminded them that love always found a way even when the road seemed impossible at first. Guests began to disperse with mixed emotions, but many left carrying seeds of greater understanding. Bryson felt a deep sense of peace settle over him as he held Ashton's hand without hesitation now. The romantic bond that had once been their carefully guarded secret now shone as a source of strength. Ethan skipped ahead, already planning their next family adventure free from the shadows of pretense. Margaret walked beside her son and his partner, her presence a steady anchor through every step forward. The day that started with a shocking outburst ended with an open door to acceptance and new beginnings. Bryson glanced back at the altar where he had nearly made a choice that would have broken his heart. Instead, the events had led to liberation and the chance to live authentically with those he loved most. Ashton smiled at him, their eyes reflecting years of shared struggles, now transformed into shared joy. The healing continued as they stepped out of the church together into the bright Colorado afternoon. Margaret linked arms with them, both her silent years of protection finally earning its well-deserved reward. Family members sent messages of support, some still processing, but willing to learn and grow alongside them. The story of their love, which had been whispered in secret, now became one of quiet triumph and resilience. Bryson knew the road ahead might still hold challenges, but with his mother and Ashton by his side, he felt ready. Ethan's innocent words had sparked the change that no one else could have initiated so perfectly. The ending brought a sense of openness where pain had once threatened to close every door forever. Margaret's final words echoed in Bryson's mind as they drove away from the church together as one family. She had shown that a mother's love could bridge any gap and protect any truth until the time was right. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the mountains that surrounded their hometown in Colorado. Bryson turned to Ashton and whispered that this was only the beginning of their real life together. Ethan fell asleep in the back seat, smiling as if he understood the victory they had all achieved that day. Margaret watched them from her seat, her heart full, knowing she had done right by staying silent, then speaking up. The narrative of hidden pain had twisted into one of profound healing and unbreakable family bonds. As they pulled into the driveway, the weight of the past lifted completely, leaving space for hope and joy. Bryson realized that sometimes the greatest gifts came from the moments that seemed most devastating at first. The story closed on a note of gentle optimism as love finally claimed its rightful place in the light. Was the mother's long silence the truest form of love for her gay son? Or did it only delay necessary honesty?